Hey, good evening, everybody. The 5 love languages. It's the middle of January. It's starting to get cold again, but things are going to heat up in February because, of course, it's Valentine's Day. So whether you are with someone or not with someone, well, it's probably more fun if you're not. Because if you're a guy, it's kind of like, I don't know, sleazy guy Christmas at the bars, I'm thinking. But anyways, the 5 love languages. I know everybody's excited, especially to hear me explain them. But I'll tell you, but they make a lot of sense. So, when you think about love languages, okay, so Valentine's Day is coming up. You have a partner, boy or girl, however you identify, who gives a shit. But I'm thinking, okay, whoever your partner is, you're going to want to do something to make them feel special or to, really kind of, seal the deal and like, it's just a love fest and they'll talk about it for the rest of their lives, right? Kind of thing. But do you know how they want to receive that sort of affection, right? Because speaking from a guy's perspective, it's like you kind of go with the traditional things, right? So you're looking at either chocolates, maybe roses, maybe you're in Prince Albert, you book a fancy meal at like Mr. Mike's or something, you know what I mean? Venice, whatever, right? You do like certain kinds of things, but is that kind of what they want, right? Or is that, is like and I'm giving a male's perspective because, clearly I'm the man. But right? So, but from the other perspective, it's like, he's not really romantic, or, okay, I know this is gonna, kind of turn out to go, I'll order myself flowers or whatever, or at least the kids will bring me a Valentine, whatever, right? Now, if you are at that stage in a relationship, no matter how far, you gotta make that effort. Because if you don't, then it's like, you'll find that, when you guys do finally get together, it's just gonna be friction and it's gonna burn down. Right? So I mean, you gotta be smart about that kind of stuff, right? There's no excuse now with cell phones and things like that not to put a reminder to say, oh, it's my partner's birthday on this day. Oh, this is the day that she thinks we went out the first time. Whatever the case may be, right? It's an odd example, probably. Those sorts of things, right? And I think technology is making it easier, but a lot of times as people are in relationships, they tend to those things. They say they don't matter, but they still like to feel acknowledged. They still like to feel like, the fire is still there kind of stuff. Well, there might be snow on the roof, but there's fire in the furnace type stuff. Although as you get older, it's more intestinal than anything else. But, however, there is a way to make it so you can at least, because if she or he or whatever feels appreciated, that's going to make the difference. And there's ways to do that. I even wrote some stuff down because even though I can't clinically say I'm a love master, but it's like I know my way around a safe. Okay. I don't even know what that means. I got to stop drinking. All right. So, man, first I was going to have a Gumby and a Pokey and do that, but maybe later. All right. That was not an innuendo. That was some claymation fun from like the 60s. Anyways, so love languages. First off, Gary Chapman has this concept, talked about the 5 love languages and how people can, enrich their relationships because, like I said earlier in my rambling opening, you have to try. There has to be the perception of effort, right? In order to make it count. Because there's nothing worse than forgetting and then trying to make up and give it. And it's like, oh yeah, I love it. It's all good. But we all know there will still be that in the back. It's like, miss my birthday. Right? Everyone's been there. Everyone's had those moments, right? Everyone's had those, no, you're supposed to buy the cake moments. Where, it kind of, it can make the person that you're with not be the person that necessarily you were with at the when you liked them, right? I just feel like complacency breeds contempt, right? As a divorced guy, there you go. But yeah, so you have to think of it in that sense. There has to be some appreciation. They have to feel it, right? It's like, and we're gonna explain. Thanks to Gary Chapman. I'll put a link up with this so you can access this stuff. All right, Mando the Blazers, more love languages. Man, your love language is interrupting. Okay. Hey, that's enough. Hey, sorry about that. Mando, my dog. It's weird. He's been watching a lot of Charles Bronson movies lately, and he's been staying out late. So he's punished. I told him no bitches tonight. Oh, he's not very happy. Anyways. The 5 love languages. Because you came here to hear what I had to say about them. So think about that. Okay? Okay. And I even wrote the 5 down because I'm a guy. Which means that sometimes with things like this, we don't exactly think things through or remember key pieces of the puzzle. Right? Like it's lubricate that insert, not... Okay, no, never mind. All right. So, love languages. Sans, Gumby, and Pokey. So, and again, Gary Chapman, 5 love languages. Check his stuff out. It's very good. He talks about all 5 in more detail than I'm going to do. But I'm going to try to give you the bargain basement. This guy should be counseling out of a Winnebago type of thing. All right. So, the first love language, of course, is words of affirmation. Right? So you got to ask yourself, how do you feel when your partner speaks, encouraging words to you, tells you, very compliments like, oh man, you smell great today, or oh, your hair looks good, that kind of stuff, right? How does that make you feel? Because if that's like, oh man, oh man, the dam's gonna burst, for anyone, that's kind of probably your love language, right? You're more of a linguistic type of person. Now, I gotta admit, I think words are incredibly sexy. Intelligence is sexy, right? All that kind of stuff. But I tell ya, words, the human language is just like, you can manipulate things. Oh man, I like writing. I like all that kind of stuff. I like talking, obviously. But man, I love wordplay. That's the coolest thing. Anyways. But my love language is avoidance. So don't go looking into that too deep. Right? So, right, basically it's like you show couples how to give each other love in ways that, that they want to receive. Right? It's like if you don't like to be touched, but you like to be told verbally, then of course it's gonna, right? That's a case where, yeah. Or, it's just like, oh, I just, like to hear it. Or whatever the case may be, right? So you got to think of those factors into play, right? So basically it's how we receive love from others, right? Give or take, right? Which brings us, and I'm turning the page, literally and figuratively, because I was going down a dark corner there. Acts of service. Oh, I was like, no, there's no 70s type porn music playing. Acts of service. So ask yourself, how do you feel when your partner helps you with tasks to reduce your burden or ease your stress? Right? So depending on how you want to look into that or read between the lines, right? If they make you feel, if by just kind of being with them, doing stuff for them, helping them out, it's like, oh, I'll carry those out for you, right? Because as a guy, I've noticed that especially as you get older, right? I find that the things just you need to be more cooperative, and it's not the big romantic gestures that floods the Sahara. It is. I gotta stop with those references. it's the action of doing it. Kind of similar to when you say those things, you're trying to do those things. This is kind of similar, but it's like, you know what, like, let me help you. Like, you know what, you cook supper, I'll do the dishes, right? Or you know what, you've been working all day, I got off early, I did the laundry and all this kind of stuff, right? That kind of stuff. It shows a level of appreciation that you know that they're working to, and that kind of builds it together. So when I said earlier about how you got to keep working on things to kind of get that going, this is part of it. Keep in mind, I'm also a divorced man. But, right, you have to work on those things. And I think a lot of it's trial and error, because especially when you're cohabitating for a long period of time, you're going to get where you start fantasizing maybe about killing the other one of them. Right? Or at least, making it look like an accident. No, but I mean, like, you get there and you start to get on each other's skin. You just little things. It's like, oh man, it's like, no, I put my towel on the top shelf. Oh, I thought it was the bottom shelf. Well, you've only lived here for 50 years. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. So I think that if you just try those little things, it'll make a big difference, because then at least you're invested. But it's got to be two ways, right? Like don't wait to the point where, things are ice cold because, you're an idiot. Right? And that happens because people come and believe it. Both sides, man. Like, I know guys that have, bent over backwards and just got the royal, just, man, they're still picking daggers out of their backs, right? So, like, those sorts of things happen, right? But that's why you got to try with those things, right? And yeah, acts of service, I know. It's like, oh man, it's like, well, would it kill you to give a blowjob every once in a while? No, it's like, it's not like that. Or it's like, all I'm going to say is, you do stuff that makes the other person feel good, regardless of who or what they are. And all good things should be reciprocated. However, I do think that in the terms of the acts of service, it's just showing that appreciation and kindness goes a long way in just kind of forging a stronger relationship with someone. Because, we can joke around about the physical part, but honestly, it's like if you're with someone and you want to be with them, and you're with them for a long period of time, then you need a bond more than just banging, right? you can't build a sustainable relationship on that, right? As anyone over 40 could probably tell you. But anyways, love language number 3 is of course receiving gifts. Now, I might have touched on a little bit of that last time, but ask yourself, how do you feel when your partner gets you thoughtful or insightful gifts? It's like, you know what? Hey, I know you're working. You're late this morning. I dropped off a coffee for you before I go to work, right? Things like that. I think that, I do shit like that. But I'm just saying, like, that's the kind of stuff that I think, it just kind of like, hey, man, I'm invested in this. And hey, I was thinking about you. I know you're running late. I grabbed you one for you, right? And that's like, oh, and it's one of those, oh, and then anyone who's in there is going to go like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, that's for a person to do that for their partner. That's like a win-win. Like, that's, that's way, even if it's out of the way, right? Because that buys you something that you can't always find, and that's that street cred. Right, everyone likes the bad guy. Yeah, sure, and I get that, right? I've watched the Goonies, right? Right? Yeah, that's fucking weird, right? I'm just saying, like. But it's those little things, because it shows, man, it's like, oh man, that guy's really thinking about her. She's, and it's like, and if they're in the committed love, it's like, oh, you know what, I really appreciate, you know what I mean? It builds that, right? That's like you get your partners being like, oh, that's awesome, you know what I mean? Oh, that's, blah, 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 because, that all usually works. And then on the other side, all the friends are like, oh man, right? That's why guys are like, fuck that guy bringing his wife a coffee. Right? Who's saying that should do that too. Because that shit matters. It really does. And the older you get, you kind of see it's like, oh yeah. I probably should have made her something to eat too that night. Or something. Right? It's just like, man, and it's easy to forget that shit because if you're in a relationship for a long period of time, you just want to fucking, like I said, sometimes you just, you're thinking about, I could probably bury you somewhere. No one would ever find you, right? But you have those moments, but you can build upon those because you're always going to have those moments. You can love someone to death and be like, tonight's the night I could probably throw you in the trunk, Goodfellas style, right? But I better stop before people start thinking I'm about to commit a crime or something. But I am single. Not because of that. All right. Let's jump to number 4. Quality time. When your partner gives you that undivided attention, where it's just like, how was your day? It can be something like that, small enough, but they actually sit there and they listen. They're not on their phone. They're just being like, oh, man. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that's, and they maybe paraphrase. They throw in some words and be like, hey, I'm listening. I hear ya. Because that goes a long way. When people feel heard, it builds something between the individuals where there starts to be a trust forming there. And I'm not saying we're all attentive to every word. I go, oh, I missed what you said or whatever, right? But I'm just saying, like, when it's stuff like, hey, man, how was your day? Oh, it was horrible. My boss, stabbed me with a fork or whatever the case, right? You talk about that stuff, oh, man, it's awful. It's awful. Was it a clean fork? Like you go back and forth, right? You make them feel heard. If they had a rough day and they need to cry, you got the shoulder, right? It's like, there. Not that's really condescending. No, but it's like, you know what, darling? I get it. It's a rough day. Just be there for me. You don't have to say anything, right? But that's that quality time piece, right? Because that's kind of key for some people. And some people need to know that they matter enough that they want to be with someone a lot. I'm an Aquarius, so clearly that is not the case with me, right? But for some people, that's just how they want to receive that love. Is that, oh man, you're listening to me. I feel connected to you now more than ever. I tell you about my great uncle Ted, and he fought Bigfoot, right? All that sort of good stuff that occurs there, builds a trust in there, strengthens the relationship, and then you get a better understanding of, okay, when she's or he is having a moment and they need some time, it's like, okay, I'm just here, just being with them, quality time, right? So number 5, and I'm assuming Dr. Chapman's, I hope this is the right 5. 5 love language lessons learned today. Physical touch. Ooh, love language number 5. Physical touch. Hold on. Ooh, this one's gonna be intense. All right. How do you feel when your partner gives you affection through touch? Now I know what you're all thinking. It's not all about sexual relations, right? Or of that sort. What it is about is just when you're sitting watching a movie, do you cuddle, right? Or if you're at the theater, do you like a guy's legs touch, right? I'm not saying you got to be like, holding hands all the time or something like that. But I mean, like, just those kind of, not everyone is big on public displays of affection, which I believe they call PDA, which oddly enough stands for public displays of affection. Right? Not everyone's big on that kind of stuff. Some people are, and some people like to touch, like their partner or whatever, because that's how they show that they're, I also think it's probably more primal, because, like, when you think back in probably caveman times, there's probably the fact that they were with them was more of a property thing. What do you think? If anyone watched this far, you should put in the comments, and what do you think? Do you think it's something more like primal in our bodies, or it's just like a reaction where it's like, like Donkey Kong throwing the barrel at the plumber in the old Donkey Kong game? No, that was Super Mario Brothers. Yeah. Anyways, but physical touch, and yeah, it can mean intimacy, intimate relations. I like that better, right? It can be, holding hands. It could just be fucking, oh no, our legs touch when we're on the couch watching a show. Or we're in the same room watching a show, right? That kind of stuff. But you know what? We're like just barely touching each other, but we're still there. Or you know what it's like when you're like, you got your feet out on the floor or whatever, and you're on the couch and it's hanging there, and then they got their feet out, then all of a sudden your toes touch, and it's like, oh, and everyone starts giggling, right? It's kind of like that. But it's like, also too, like I said, it could be anything, just like, you know, when you walk to pass by, you slap them or her on the ass or something, if they like that sort of thing. Or you just touch it gently and remind them that they're the one that you like. If it's consensual. I'm not advocating anything other than that. That's what I think. I think it's more that physical kind of stuff where it's like, haha, right? There you go, right? And I'm sure it probably will lead to more intimate relations if you follow what I've said here today. Because 60% of the time it works every time. All right, I was kind of silly and ridiculous tonight. But I think I know what I'm talking about a little bit. Maybe not about this, but love languages, check out Gary Chapman. Because that's, of course, he's the daddy of the love language stuff, I'm thinking. Right? And if you watch this far, clearly you might dig what I say a little bit. If you do, please give it a share, give it a like, give it a follow or a subscribe. And, yeah, if you're in a relationship, the other person is there too. And that's something that we need to remember. And I think a lot of us from experience look at things we could have done differently and wish we would have acted differently or chosen more wisely, right? That's neither here nor there. But you got to learn from those moments. You can't just jump in the shit just because you want to feel good with someone. You can't just, ghost people, which some I'm horrible for. I mean, like, I'm just, well, no, yeah. But no, like, I said, like, mine is avoidance. No, just those sorts of things where it's like, sometimes you question why you're in a relationship. And then, when you're not in a relationship, you question why you're not in a relationship. Those two things are not mutually exclusive, I do not think. Right? Because there's pros and cons. I got some female perspectives on that today. And I was like, you know what? You're right. Like, it's, like, you can't, like, in my mind, you can't just shack up for someone for the holidays. But at the same time, maybe there's just a rich old lady, a little soft in the head or something. I don't know. That's just kind of where we're at in the world. I think everyone wants the same thing. They just want to be heard. They want to feel loved. They want to feel all that kind of stuff. And if any of this stuff I've said today you think makes sense, okay. Because it does. I think it does. And I think that even like, this might sound ridiculous, but even if they taught like interpersonal relations in school, like, I'm not talking about hooking kids up. I'm talking about just like, when you go, when you don't know anyone at a party and you show up, or like just stupid shit like that. Like, that's stuff that we all awkwardly kind of went through, but now that everything is online, it's really changing the way I think the next generation views what relationships and, and love is. Right? It's not like, it's crazy. It's weird how life has just kind of evolved to this point of, wow, like, AI and stuff can do so much. And then, right, but there's a social component that's missing, right? That's why I think Stranger Things is such a big hit, because kids don't just go hop on their bikes anymore and go run around town, right? It was a simpler time with monsters and experiments. But hey, nothing's perfect. Just like relationships. Just try. That's all you got to do. Well, I'm Corey Rennie. I'm the unemployable counselor. This is fun. All right. Thank you for checking this out. And like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And we'll catch you on the next one. Thank you.